Hello and welcome to the Keto Man's Club podcast.
We're glad you're here, where each week we talk about men's health and lifestyle.
We do so with the foundation of the ketogenic diet and lifestyle.
If you don't know what keto is, stick around and you'll find out.
The podcast will bring you real, honest fun.
Each week we strive to uncover the tips and tricks that you can use in your everyday life to maximize your overall health.
Find the clearest path to becoming the best version of yourself that you were meant to be.
Are recording. We'll give it a few moments to be semi-silent. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Keto Man's Club podcast. My name is Chris. I'm one of your hosts, and as always, I'm joined by Jim and Alberto. How's it going?
All good, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. It was a productive day of work on several fronts, and now we are doing this, and I'm also fueled by liquid, and that always helps. So... Alberto, how about you?
Good. A little chilly. It's funny, we just happened to record an episode, 2 days ago, and it was 80 degrees out. And the very next day, it was 38 degrees and raining. So.
Yes.
It gets in the 30s in Texas?
It can.
It can,
What?
on rare occasion.
Yeah, it doesn't snow. It will rain, though. And it's cold rain, and it's no fun.
That's been the high in my state for the last couple of days. So.
Well, you know, if it would stay this cold all the time, I would be totally okay with it. It's the back and forth, up and down, that just drives me crazy because my body doesn't get the chance to adjust to a temperature. Because in Kansas City, growing up, you know, the first few really cold days, you bundle up and you kind of have to be warm. But after that, you know, a week or two into winter and there's snow on the ground and I'm in shorts again. So I'm one of those guys. But it's not doing that down here. And that's annoying. So I'm in my sweats and t-shirt today and staying inside.
Let's say there's something weird about, like, when there's 40 degrees and there's snow on the ground, it's warm.
Mm-hmm.
But when there's 40 degrees and it's not snow on the ground, it just feels cold.
Yes, it does. Usually because it's wet in the air, and it, instead of being on the ground, it's in the air, and so we feel it more. Humidity is a wonderful thing like that. So let's go ahead and dive right on into our shout-outs for the week. Alberto, how about you start?
Oh, longtime member and a member of many groups that I'm in, Finn Mc. We all know who Finn is. There's only one Finn. He's got an action figure. He likes Jameson. And if you don't know who it is from that, stick around.
He's an amazing top hat.
Amazing top hat. A phenomenal beard. And I've never asked him how tall and big he is, but he seems to be quite the massive individual.
Yes, he does. And why are we calling him out, other than the fact that he's awesome?
Just a lot of good engagement. He always happens to jab a little comment in there that'll make you giggle when everyone else is being serious. And just kind of an understated member of our group that actually does add quite a bit of good content for us.
Agreed. Jim, how about you?
So my shout out is going to James Allen Clark Jr. When you've got 4 or 3 first names, you're already cool like that. So James Allen Clark is let me get it pulled up here because I'm looking at 2 different things. He is from Fayetteville, North Carolina, and there's no description in this other than a Transformation Tuesday. But when you see the physical transformations of the guys in our group, it's always awesome. But he did the same shirt before and after kind of thing, and so you can tell it in his neck, his chin, and everything. The shirt is kind of tight on him, and then that's the before picture, and now total difference. It's baggy on him, and he's got this big grin on his face. So a very simple Transformation Tuesday photo, but awesome job, James Allen Clark Jr.
Agreed. And I am going to shout out Greg Bevington. He posts pretty regularly on Transformation Tuesdays, but he apparently has crossed the 200-pound line. He's got his most recent picture at 199. He started above 300. He doesn't say exactly how high. So he started above 300 though, and you can tell it's a whole different ball game in that regard. So he's done some excellent work on reclaiming his health, and he looks happy and healthy, and that's an amazing thing for sure. So shout out to all of these guys. They've done great, and they engage in our group, and it's been pretty awesome. So let's talk a little bit. We talked a little bit about this in the last podcast episode at the last week of the year, but it's by the time that this episode airs, it will have officially launched, and so we want to reinforce a couple things with it. We now have the TKMC Beginners Group, and it's a place that if you are still trying to figure out about keto, if you're trying to get started, if you can't answer the question, with specific information regarding the macros, we're going to encourage you to join the beginners group, because that's going to be a great place for you to learn those things and really get a leg up and get answers to the questions that people have at the beginning of their keto journey. So let's talk about that a little bit really quickly. What are we still even haven't built it out completely yet at this point, so most of this is speculative, but as we're doing this, kind of let's talk about what it's going to offer for those beginners so they know what they can do. Jim, let's start with you talking a little bit about what we have talked about regarding like mentorship or pulling someone in and all of that.
Sure. So when the Keto Man's Club was founded back in 2017, the idea was that it was for guys who were already familiar with the keto way of eating. They didn't want to be in a group that they saw what can I have at Starbucks, or how does this work, or I want to do it today, so what do I need to do? It was more for a higher level kind of thing. We've had such a huge surge in our group on so many different levels that we've decided for 2020 to offer the TKMC Beginners Group on Facebook for guys who are new to keto, who want to find answers to basic questions and such, who want to get that camaraderie like we've seen in the Keto Man's Club, and be able to ask questions freely, learn about things, share their successes and whatnot. So we're going to do a lot of things. We're going to have some of the same administrators and moderators that we have in the Keto Man's Club in the new beginners group. We've got some other guys who have stepped up and want to participate and help out as well. We're going to do a lot of things where we're providing information right at the start, so guys who join the group can see, here's a macro calculator. Here is what you can do if you stall. Here is how you figure out your mac, all these different things. And so that's kind of where we're hoping to be when this is launched, which by the time the podcast airs, that's the plan, that it will be up and running and everything. And we'd love to have any guys who are listening to the podcast and discovering keto for the first time, because it's kind of the New Year's and that people are doing the New Year's resolutions and all that. Now's the time to check it out, and in a safe environment, again, men's only kind of thing, and learning from guys who have walked the walk and talked the talk.
Absolutely. Alberto, do you want to talk about some of the videos and some of the resources that we're planning on trying to put together?
Yeah, we're going to have I guess we should call it like a bank, so to speak, of videos, and hopefully we can get some other people involved that are outside of the group, some quote unquote the keto pros, to just give little tidbits of information for people that are getting started, the basic questions, because what we don't want to happen is have these questions repeat themselves over and over and over and over again, which they inevitably will, because there's only so many beginner questions, so they tend to repeat themselves. But if we can reference these people, say, hey, great question, we'll tag you in this video, it'll answer your questions, and then hopefully have a decent bank of those videos. And then once you're good and comfortable, and we don't know what the quote unquote like graduation ceremony would be yet for you to join the Keto Man's Club. It's not going to be anything crazy. It might just be a time frame. It might be a time frame and post some meals. It might have to do with engagement. It might have to do with pictures of the scale, kind of proving that it's working. We have no idea. All that's still up in the air, but it's not going to be anything too crazy.
Yep, absolutely. And this is just going to be a really great place for men to get together and learn. We do hope that there are things. I'll say it this way: keto for women, and actually is probably more complicated than it is for men on some level, because we're dealing with hormones, and for men, our hormones are a little more level throughout the month.
The views expressed by this host don't necessarily recommend
I'm trying to be.
You're going in deep territory, Chris.
Yeah, I am. I am. If this gets edited out later, it gets edited out.
Oh no, it's staying.
No, it stays.
Suck it, ladies and gentlemen.
You just got to say, because men are men.
Because men are men. Yes. So there is a difference for keto for men and keto for women on some level, and so this will be a group where men can actually talk about the men stuff and not have to worry worry about some of the other things that are in the mixed groups or in the women only groups. Let them focus on those things, and that's good. That's great. Everybody needs a resource for them. And, there's nothing wrong with camaraderie among men. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. So this will be a really great resource for us to get the people that are just starting for that. Like we said, we'll have some video content. We'll have some mentors that are there to answer questions. And hopefully, those people that join, they'll learn quick and they'll be able to join the ranks of the official Keto Man's Club in no time. And so we're looking forward to this. This is going to be a great opportunity for those just getting started. So I think that's it for the announcements for business. I will throw it in while I'm thinking about it. A quick encouragement for all of you listening. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the podcast. We've got right now, this is probably episode almost 39, 40, maybe. Am I counting wrong? We're getting up there. And so we're not stopping anytime soon. And so please, go ahead and subscribe. We've got lots of great guests that are going to come in the future. We've got lots of great guests that have been with us in the past. Check them all out if you haven't already. And we will, we just look forward to that. And if you do find value in these podcasts and subscribe, take a few moments, share it, maybe leave a comment or a rating. Those things go a long way to help get the word out about this podcast, about the group, and all of that. So that's all the business. And now we get to go into the focus of our guest, because we do have a guest this week, and he is the one and only Corey Madrasky. And I say one and only because there's only one guy I know that can actually pull off short shorts the way he does.
The man with the thickest thighs in the game.
Yeah. So we're going to get into his story today, and we're going to learn a lot about rucking. If you don't know what that is, you will by the end of this episode, I'm sure. He's actually a return guest to the podcast. Actually, he joined us for the KetoCon Roundtable. So if for those of you who have heard that episode, his voice will sound familiar, and we'll be able to dive into his story specifically today. So Corey, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Before we get started, we'll go back to that hormonal comment that you guys touched on. I would put it as men have a 365-day cycle, whereas women have a 28-day cycle. So we're very much more consistent.
Chris, you're fired.
Yeah. Well, that's a very respectful way to put it. That's for sure. And of course, I've known some guys that were out of hormonal balance, and they were having some cycles a little bit more frequently. So, okay, Corey, let's get into your background. We'll start at the beginning, like what we always do. Lead us up into you realizing that you needed to correct or fix something health-wise.
Oh, geez. That was a long time ago. When I was going through high school, I was trying to get into the Army, and I was running about 220, and I was wrestling at heavyweight, which if back in the day was actually pretty light for heavyweight. Heavyweight at that time went from 216 all the way up to 275. And so the Army said, no, you're too heavy. And at that point, I had been ranked 19th in state Ohio in my weight division for wrestling. So I was a little confused. So I decided to go to college and get a degree and try to lose the weight while I was in college, which was a bad idea because when you go to college, you gain more weight from the stress of being responsible for yourself for the first time in your life. So I graduated college, and at that point I was about 330 pounds, I believe. And then I spent a few years outside of college just kind of working in the private sector as a pool supply salesman. And the average lunch over at the pool store would be run over to McDonald's and get 220 pieces and then house that within about 5 minutes. And then be drinking, me and my manager would drink a 24 pack of Diet Coke in a day. And things didn't look so good. And by the time I finally left that job and went to school to get my physical therapist assisting degree, my weight really hadn't changed. So my first job, I went vegan for a good 3 years, and I went from 330 down to about 250. But it was horrible. Because I mean, I really believe I was deluding myself and saying how good I felt because I had lost the weight. And that's really all I cared about. So I remember I was drinking, juices with arugula and mint and cayenne pepper, sweet potato, you name it. I was juicing it. And I just remember feeling cold all the dang time. And so I knew that wasn't the answer. So after I got done with veganism, I just went back to kind of standard American diet and CrossFit. And during my CrossFit time is when I got introduced to Go Ruck. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But after a few years of Go Ruck, I was like, shouldn't be getting harder. This should be getting easier because I've been doing more of these events. And it wasn't getting easier, so I knew a change needed to be made. I was listening to Tim Ferriss's audiobook, the 4 hour diet or
4 hour workday,
4 hour diet or
4
something like
hour
that.
day. Yeah.
And he talked about ketosis, and he was talking about cyclical keto, where you spend about 6 days in ketosis, and then you have your cheat day to get it out of your system. And I did that for a while, and then I was like, well, why am I having a cheat day? I already like the food as it is. Why don't I just stay in ketosis all the time? So I did, and at that point, I was probably pushing. I didn't really track my weight before I went into keto, so I estimated it somewhere between 285 and 300. And then if I started tracking it in MyFitnessPal's with macros and everything, and you're like, oh yeah, there's, my weight across my lifespan, and then keto, and there's this sharp decline. And I've never looked back since.
Cool. So let's dig into the veganism part of that. You said you just felt awful. When you went into that side of things, was that because you thought it was more healthy? What actually convinced you that was something worth doing?
I was working at a physical therapy practice here in my hometown, Toledo, Ohio, and we had just rented out a space to a holistic health coach. Who I'm not afraid to admit, I'm still friends with her. She's a very nice lady. She helps a lot of people around here. But after a few years of it, I realized that veganism wasn't me. But she had come in and pitched the staff on her services, and I was like, well, this is one thing I haven't tried, so I might as well try it. And so at that time, I was working as the aquatic physical therapist assistant. So I stood in a 94-degree heated pool, and I actually showed people how to do aquatic exercise for about 5 hours a day. And so I wasn't losing weight, and I was in this hot friggin' pool. So I started Mary's program, and she got me juicing and eating all, spaghetti squash and, the zucchini boats and all these things. And I lost the weight, but is what tasted better? Was it the weight loss or was it the zucchini boat? And the weight loss is definitely what kept me going. But as soon as that stopped, as soon as I hit a plateau, I jumped ship and I went back to old habits.
You talked about your weight and everything, but give us a little bit about your size. Like, how tall are you? Or are other family members big and things like that? Because, we hear it from different guys or guys that have different backgrounds, so to speak. They're the big guy of the family, or everybody's had a weight issue, whatnot. So talk a little bit about that.
Everybody's got it. Me, my dad, my brother, we're all clones of each other. When we would go to the bowling alley for Friday nights, me and my brother would stand next to each other and we would laugh, and everyone would be like, "Oh my God, it's Mojo in stereo." Yeah, we look the same, we sound the same, we act the same. We're just clones. So, to say that there's some kind of genetic or epigenetic factor there is there's no denying it.
Right.
My brother was big. I could show people my brother's picture, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, your hair color changed. Did you dye that?" And I'm like, "No, that's my brother." You couldn't tell a difference between us almost. He was 7 years older than I am.
Wow.
Yeah. My dad, he's no longer with us. He passed away about 2 years ago, but he had pretty bad diabetes, heart disease. When he passed, it was due to a wound that he had gotten, and the diabetes wasn't allowing him to heal. It was to the point where you could take your finger and touch his hip bone without touching flesh. That's how bad
Oh
he had
my
worn a
gosh.
hole in his rear end,
Oh,
which is what we in the business refer to as a pressure ulcer.
right.
But he had also been on kidney dialysis for years. He had a heart attack heck when I was in high school getting my driver's temps. It's just his life was just a battle with chronic disease, and I don't want that for myself, and I don't want my children to see that sort of thing.
How old was your dad when he passed away?
He was 70. So yeah, my family's been pretty big, and we all struggled with it. My mom, she would try to get us exercising, and then feed us fruit cocktail from a can, and get us eating low fat chicken from Tyson, breaded processed stuff that I look back and I
Mm-hmm.
wonder, I was like, why didn't we think about that?
Well, nobody did. So you really, I mean, if
Mhm.
we all think back to how we all grew up at that time, what we were eating at the time, and the TV dinners and everything frozen and
Mhm.
out of boxes, it was the time of convenience and mass consumption, and it was just how things were done. I mean, my mom cooked a lot of stuff from scratch, but that doesn't mean that everyone that we weren't eating our fair share of what we all would now consider junk food.
I mean, I could house a 12 pack of hard tacos from Taco Bell like it was a snack. When I was in grade school, I could take, if you guys remember, Pizza Hut had a Bigfoot pizza. It was like this big rectangular friggin' pizza. I
Oh
could eat one
yeah.
of those by myself.
Wow.
Yeah, it was good times.
So now you're into the
Nowadays,
carrying. Now you're into carrying heavy things on your back for long distances and long periods of time.
while showing gratuitous leg.
Showing the thickest thighs in the game.
Ah,
So start
thick.
start with this at the very top, because I was actually talking to my wife about this morning, and she's like, oh, rucking's a thing. I'm like, yeah, rucking's a thing. She's like, well, what kind of thing is it? And I'm like, it's a organization, it's a club. I'm like, you know what? I'll have more answers for you later. So start very, very broad of how you got involved, what exactly is Go Ruck, and then kind of go in as far as you want.
Well, let's unpack it from rucking. Let's start there because rucking, I think, is essentially one of those primal movement patterns that we've had since we were cavemen. It's evolved over the years with technology. We now have backpacks, aka rucks, that we can carry stuff in, but the movement pattern is roughly the same. If you were on the plains of Africa, or you were running through the jungles of Borneo and you take down a gazelle or whatever creatures are in Borneo. I'm not that well traveled. You're going to have to carry that back to your camp, and you're going to have to slaughter it so that you can feed the rest of your tribe. And that's no different than rucking now. Is essentially everybody does it, just a little bit differently. Is you load up your laptop and you get on the subway and you walk to work, or you have your everyday carry bag of stuff that you need while you're at work to sustain your keto lifestyle. You basically have a gym on your back and you're ready to go anytime. It's something our military has done ever since it's existed. Is we've had guys in backpacks running through the woods trying to fend off the British, or we've been crawling through the trenches of World War One, or hiking through the Pacific Islands in World War II. Vietnam, every armed conflict, you've got to move your gear, you've got to move food to supply your men and keep them going logistically. And most of the time, it was carried on your back.
What is the weight? I mean, I
Mhm.
got a buddy that is doing this now. He told me I need to join them in some time. What is the weight? Is it? I mean, is it dependent upon the person, or how do you determine what's a good weight for somebody who wants to get into rucking?
I like to go by GoRuck's standards. So let's talk about who GoRuck is and what their deal is. I got introduced to GoRuck by my weightlifting coach. His name was Mike Yushek. He's a pretty cool guy that I still hang out with. He had done a GoRuck event and he told me about it, and I was like, yes, that sounds awesome. Basically, it was a company started by a Green Beret. He wanted to make the world's best backpack, so it was made out of Special Forces material. It had a lifetime warranty. As long as you didn't shoot it or stab it or set it on fire, you ship it back to them, they repair it, they send it back to you. But he needed a way to show people how it was the toughest backpack, so he came with the Go Ruck Challenge. At first, when the Go Ruck Challenge came out, there wasn't a whole lot of info on it. It was just like, here, show up to this spot, have these items in your ruck, and be ready to go for however long we say. Since then, it's kind of morphed. There are different levels to the Go Ruck Challenge now. They have a heavy, they have a tough, they have a light, and they have selection. So a light is about 5 to 6 hours. You can expect to go about 8 to 10 miles. For weight wise, people would normally, if you're under 150 pounds, you carry 10 pounds in your ruck separate from all the other gear. And then if you're over 150, they want you carrying 20 pounds separate from everything. So what you carry is up to you. I have special weighted plates. But I've seen people take bricks and duct tape them together. I've seen people take, weights from their weight sets and stuff them in their bag. I've seen all sorts of Franken weights that people have made over the years. One of my Team RWB folk had made like a plywood board, and they had zip tied like different hand weights and the odds and ends from around the house to it just to stabilize it. And they were walking around using that as their ruck. So from there on, then you have the tough, which is about 10 to 12 hours, and you can expect to go somewhere between 12 to 20 miles on that. And they recommend that if you're under 150 pounds, you ruck with 20 pounds. And if you're over the 150 pounds, you should ruck 30 pounds. If you're exactly 150 pounds, do what you think is right, which is go heavy, go with the 30. The heavy is a 24 plus hour team building event. Which by the way, Cadre DS is going to kill me if I don't give his definition of what Go Ruck is. Go Ruck is a team building endurance event based on special operations training, if you want the succinct version. And so back to the heavy. The heavy is 24 plus hours. You can expect to go 40 plus miles, and it's billed as the ultimate team building event. The standards for weight are the same: 20 pounds if you're under 150, 30 pounds if you're over 150. But it gets a little bit trickier because then you have to pack all that gear to sustain yourself while you're out there. You've got other things in your ruck like your headlamp, you've got, a windbreaker if there's weather, extra socks if you need them, lickies and chewies, which is, food. Different friction mitigation salves or sticks or stuff like that, and then odds and end gear that the cadre have you bring with you if they decide to do something special. And then the final event is selection. Selection is not a team event. That is a individual event. It's 48 plus hours long. And if you can complete selection, you can go to any Go Ruck event free for the rest of your life.
And 48 hours nonstop? 48 hours you're camping at times?
That's a little more complicated because there is a pre-selection qualification. So there's like a fitness test that you have to do before you can actually take place in selection. And then as long as you pass the PT test, then you move on to selection. And then selection just starts 48 hours of the cadre kicking your dick in.
Holy cow.
They're not nice. Their whole purpose during selection is to get you to quit. And because this is the toughest endurance event on the planet. So they're not your friend. You meet the standard or you're out. The standard is the standard and there is nothing else.
And it's not just walking, is it? Like, don't you say
No.
you do like you'll stop and do like physical challenges and stuff. So it's not like it's not just hiking.
We'll do PT when we stop for breaks. But I mean, don't get me wrong. During the heavy, tough, light events, it's not nonstop rucking. It's not nonstop PT. There are times where we stop and the cadre will tell us about what they did during their military service or what they've been doing, or they'll tell us stories from their service, or if it's a special event that we're commemorating. Like I just did the Battle of Mogadishu Mile events in Detroit back in October. And if you've ever watched the movie Black Hawk Down, that event is kind of to honor the guys that passed away during that operation. There were 19 casualties that died when those two Black Hawks went down, and then there was one casualty after the battle was over due to a mortar attack. And so we're out there kind of honoring those guys' memories and making sure they're not forgotten.
Huh.
So we're telling their stories. Like I had for this latest event, I had Sergeant Dominic Pila. He's from New Jersey. He was the first official casualty of the Battle of Mogadishu. He was a ranger in the convoy that was going to pick up the high value targets at the hotel that the Delta and Rangers were attacking to get intel on the warlord they were going to take out in Mogadishu, in Somalia. And he caught a round just above his right eye under his helmet. it from the fire from the streets as they were moving the convoy to the hotel. Very sad, but it's the memory of those heroes that this nation's built on, and to go out there and honor them, I don't think there's a better thing to do with your Thursday through Sunday night.
So through Go Ruck, you've done pretty much every type of event other than selection, right?
Pretty much the only event other than selection that I haven't done is the 50-mile star course, which that's kind of on my list for next year. It's like the one thing I haven't really tackled yet, and until I can get more in shape for selection, we're gonna have to wait and see what comes. That's the 50-mile star course is based off of Teddy Roosevelt kind of threw down a challenge to the Marines during his reign and said, there's a lot of out of shape guys in the Corps, and we need to do something about that. If you want to stay in the Corps, you're going to pack up your stuff and you're going to walk 50 miles. If you can't make it, you're out. And so that is the basis for that event. President Kennedy kind of revived it back in the 60s as his physical fitness initiative. And now Go Ruck has brought it back as a kind of almost a fun race. It's a little bit better than the Go Ruck Challenge. If you want something that's just rucking, the Star Course is definitely for you. And they have different levels of that now. It used to be just the 50. Now they have a marathon 26.2, and then they have I don't know if it's a 5K or a 10K level that they're doing now. But I think if you're over 150 pounds, it's 20 pounds in your ruck. And then if you're under 150, it's only 10 pounds. But the Star Course has a time cap, 20 hours. So you have to go to the different checkpoints in the city and make your time hack, or you don't get your patch and you don't get the finish.
So that actually brings up a couple different things that I know that people will be curious about. So where do these happen? Because usually you think, backpacking, woods, mountains.
Mm-hmm.
That's not exactly where this normally happens, number one. And talk a little bit about what you do, especially in the team building things that happen during these events.
Okay, so Go Ruck, typically when we say rucking, we're doing it in an urban environment. We're doing it in New York City, Detroit, Columbus, Indianapolis. I've seen stuff in I think Coronado and San Diego. Seattle. When I was down at KetoCon, I actually skipped out on Saturday to go rucking with the Central Texas Ruck Club.
Taco Ruck.
The Taco Ruck. I didn't eat any tacos, but it was nice to be with a nice crew of people enjoying themselves. You can do rucking anywhere. It doesn't have to be in the woods. It doesn't have to be in an urban setting. I walk around my neighborhood, and if I don't feel like driving to one of the metro parks, or if I'm on a press for time to get a good workout in, I'll just walk up and down the streets. You can ruck anywhere. It's just a matter of how creative are you to look at the world and go, can I ruck that?
Yeah, and so a lot of people will they will do like call outs each month for like personal challenges for you, when in between events and things like that. Talk a little bit about that and the community, both online and off, that has come around this rucking thing.
Yeah, so Go Ruck is kind of started setting up ruck clubs throughout the area, or throughout the country. So if people are really like rucking and they want to, do it with a group of people, because you can do it alone and it's a good workout, but it's more fun when you got friends with you. You can talk about stuff, you can tell jokes, and you're all walking together, being a tribe kind of thing. And that is something really beautiful. My ruck club is actually through a veterans organization, Team RWB. We are a organization that helps military personnel take in transition from the military to civilian life through physical and social activities. So, within our chapter, we do some running, we do yoga. I just happen to run the rucking portion of it. So like tonight when I get done talking to you guys, I'll probably be looking around at which metro park in the area I want to have Saturday's ruck at, or I'll start planning. Go Ruck sends out these call outs where these are challenges that the ruck clubs can perform that are actually really fun. to get patches. Everything in Go Ruck is all about the patches. Where you do the events to get patches, you do the call outs to get patches. Go Ruck even puts out little workout challenges. Throughout the year. Like they have a monthly challenge where they'll either post workouts that you have to do weekly, or they'll tell you, like at the beginning of this year, they wanted people to do 50 miles rucking within the first 2 weeks of the year. And so that becomes a challenge because, hey, it's cold out, but I want this patch. It looks sweet, and I want to earn it because you're around the honor system. You can say, hey, I did 50 miles, and I'll send you a freaking patch. But every time you look at that patch, you're gonna go, I didn't really earn that. I just said I did it. What good is it to me? Every patch, I have a patch board in the other room.
It's rather impressive looking.
Yes, it is.
Every patch on that board represents hours and hours of sweat, definitely blood, sometimes tears, a couple times, and an investment. Every patch is a story, and that's really what I love doing. That's why I started KetoRucker.com, is I wanted to share my stories of rucking. 'Cause like my favorite story to tell was my second event, was the Mogadishu Mile in Cleveland. It was 46 degrees, raining sideways, and we were getting drilled by a former Navy SEAL. We had a counter-terrorist Green Beret there, and then there was a third cadre who I can't remember. And I was utterly exhausted by the end of that event, but I was hooked. That was it. We had I think 43 people started that event and 40 finished. And by about the last mile of the event, the cadre had killed off half of the team. So when the cadre say, hey, you're dead, lay down, it's up to your team to pick them up and their gear up, carry them as far as he says. So we had pretty much half the team we were carrying dead, and we had to get them back to the finish point. And it takes you to that pain cave. It takes you to that place deep inside of yourself where you're talking to yourself, and that internal voice part of you saying, you can't do this. But then slowly that little voice peaks up and says, yes, you can do this. Keep going. You got this. And then before you know it, you're there. You're at the finish, and everyone's smiling and they're patting you on the back, and then the cadre hands you that patch. And to anybody else who's never done an event, it's just a patch. Who cares? But to me, that patch represents miles. It represents the sweat I put into carrying some stupid log, or I had to carry one of my friends for I don't know how long, or it was a matter of learning how to switch a sandbag while still moving and not stopping. So every patch on that board is telling a story, and I can't wait till my kids are old enough where they can point to a patch and go, tell me about that one.
That's awesome. Are you familiar with this is kind of a little off topic, but you know who Steve Ranella
I can't say I'm familiar with him.
He's got a show on Netflix, Meat Eater. He's a hunter. Pretty much his show is him just going out into the woods and his experience with hunting, kind of documentary-ish, but not really. Anyways, what you were talking about just kind of reminded me of it. He was saying that like how that sometimes they go out, they go to do this hunt and they got 2-3 people and it's raining and it's 30 degrees and the rain comes down sideways and nothing goes as planned. And he's like, you know what? He's like, the suck is what makes the memories. He's like, the days you go out and you get your kill on the first day and everything goes great. He's like, you never talk about those. He's like, it's days like this where we're out here and it's 30 degrees and the rain's coming down sideways and we haven't seen an animal in 2 days and we're not getting picked up for 3 days. He's like, this is what we're going to look back on and laugh about. These are the memories that we're making right now. And your experience with what you were just saying reminded me of that episode. It's on Netflix. It's definitely worth watching. Super cool guy, super knowledgeable guy. I mean, he's got his own podcast too, got his own cookbooks. The guy's all over the place. He's awesome.
I'll definitely check him out. He's cool. I mean, I follow a lot of different people. I was big into Mark Devine for a while over at Seal Fit. Obviously, I can't remember his name. Goggins. I read his book, which actually his audiobook, if you guys listen to that on Audible, it's way better because they stick in like the cliff notes in between the chapters. I like to study all about the mental aspect of everything, because really a Go Ruck event is all about the mental. You're there as a team, and if you're thinking about quitting, you need to talk to your team, because the weights only get heavier as you lose more people. I was in an event in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and it was my second tough, and we had these giant tree logs. The cadre had shaved all the friggin' bark off, and they were slippery as hell. And this is like Veterans Day weekend, and people were quitting in the middle of the event. And all that did was screw the people that stuck around, because we had to drag these logs up and down the road, and that you're not helping anybody out that way. So when you say it's like three guys waiting for their pickup, that's kind of what these events are. Is it's you. I have so many relationships that I've built just from Go Ruck events. I have friends that I only see at Go Ruck events, but they've been through the stuff with me, and we'll always remember this guy when he was talking all this trash, but then he quit right after the deck of cards. That's the kind of stuff we remember when we go out on these events, and we're always talking about that.
So, which experience would you say is kind of your most impactful as far as event, or like what was that like?
Oh, it's so hard to say which one was most impactful, because every one is its own unique experience. The one that I've been waiting for the longest time was the one I just did in Detroit back in October. Was we did a custom event on October 3rd that followed the actual events of the Black Hawk Down scenario, or the Battle of Mogadishu. So we started at 3:00, and the first chopper went down at 3:42, and that's when we kind of stopped and like, all right, the first chopper went down. This is what it was like on the ground. And the cadre running the event, his name's Cadre Igor. He was one of the Delta operators that was on standby when the Blackhawks went down. He was, I believe it was Bravo team, and it was actually Alpha team that was going in to raid the hotel. So that was really cool. We were talking to somebody who was there, actually part of the history. It's one thing to have somebody tell you about an event. It's another thing to talk to somebody who, like the World War II vets were like telling you about Normandy and D-Day. That's very powerful. It's amazing to talk to somebody who was there at the 9/11 tragedy when it happened, and get their story. So Cadre Igor teaching us, telling us, hey, that beginning scene in the movie Black Hawk Down where they shoot the guy's engine on his car, and then they walk all up cool to his window and tap on it, and he's like hangs up his phone all cool. That shit never happened. That was all Hollywood. And he was giving us the real deal on like the Black Hawk Down movie. And then he was telling us, like, during that event, we got to go to a CrossFit gym and do fast roping off of a climbing rope at the gym. Which I wrote up a whole after action report on this if you want to read it on my website. But that was a really cool event because we got to fast rope. So we got to kind of experience, what it's like for an operator to, go down a rope with, 100 pounds of gear on them. And then they got to go in and they got to clear a building with unknown bad guys and then get the heck out of Dodge. And he showed us, the basics of close quarter combat on how to clear a room using like airsoft rifles. So we really got the Go Ruck always said that their mission was to kind of bridge the gap between civilians and military. And I thought that event really did a great job of it.
I was just going to kind of transitioning back to health and everything. So all of this rucking and everything and all this physical activity you've done. So tie back in keto and this to where you're at right now, health-wise, weight-wise,
Okay.
everything.
So when I started Go Ruck events, I was partly plant-based, partly paleo, making that transition. And so I did 3 years of Go Ruck events. There's got to be an easier way. I'm doing all this work. Why am I not getting fitter? So I finally started the keto diet, and between the rucking and the diet, I was dropping weight like mad. And then when I finally kind of reached my peak weight loss, I finally had the confidence to go and do these heavies and try to do multiple events back to back. And life seemed a lot easier when I wasn't carrying all that weight. Because let's face it, you take a 300-pound dude and then you throw another 80-pound sandbag on top of him while carrying a 30-pound ruck. That's a lot of weight. So if I drop all that and then I'm strong from carrying all that in the first place, and then life is a lot easier going up and down stairs with all that gear.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then just my whole self-image improved. I finally, for the first time in my life, I felt like I could actually, speak to my patients with confidence, because when you're a healthcare provider and you're overweight and you don't look healthy yourself, it's hard to really speak to these people and tell them, you got to do this, you got to move, or, you're never going to get better.
Right.
Well, and they look at you and they're like, well, you're not doing any better than I am.
Yeah, that type of perceived hypocrisy is there with that, and it's not full on. I think there's a lot of ignorance that happens in the world, but we have doctors and so-called professionals, and they aren't healthy, whether they're average weight or not. They're not healthy, and they're telling us, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, and we just kind of know a little bit different these days, and that's not a bad thing. So let's so you were talking about your stats, things that you've achieved. At this point, you're doing pretty good. So talk about where you stand right now, and any goals that you have still that you're trying to pursue.
Oh, right now, so my lowest I got down to was about 204. That was during the September 11th events back in 18, and then I bought a house, and I had another child. So between stress and weightlifting, I put on about 30 pounds. So I'm sitting good at about 230 right now. I would like to get those numbers down to about 190, but it's one of those things where I'm also learning to manage my stress levels, because that hormonal component comes back in. Is if you're in that constant sympathetic state of fight or flight, your body doesn't necessarily want to relax enough to let you drop that weight. So getting comfortable with having massive amount of debt from having a house and starting a business and still trying to work my day job while raising two tiny humans and keeping my wife pleased while still trying to do my hobby that takes massive amounts of time to perform a movement is a delicate balancing act, to say the least.
Absolutely, I know a little bit about that. So let's. So that's you have transitioned into trying to not just take this and benefit yourself, but you're trying to turn this around to help others too. You're doing it with your spin on it. But tell us a little bit about the website, what you're doing, things that where you're hoping to take that.
So right now, I started about at the beginning of the year. I filed for my business, and then a couple months later, I finally sat down and put in the work and made it up as the Keto Rucker blog, KetoRucker.com. And I just wanted to kind of share my part of the narrative. And all my patients always tell me about how inspiring and how much they wish they could do what I do. And I ask them, well, why not? Why, unless you're 103, there's no reason that you can't at least get out and go walking. There's no reason that you can't if you can't do 10 pounds in your ruck, put a water bottle, put 2 water bottles. Just go with an empty ruck until an empty ruck is easy. The biggest thing I like to preach is activity modification. I had a really great undergraduate professor in developmental kinesiology. He preached about activity modification. If you can't do something, modify it until it's easy enough for you to do. And then once it feels really easy, make it harder so that it's not quite as easy, but it's still realistic. And I think that applies to more than just physical activity. That applies to mental, emotional, eating, anything in life. If it's too hard, figure out a way to make it easier so that you can do it, and then challenge yourself to go a little bit further and a little bit further and a little bit further. So Keto Ruckers is my telling of how I'm trying to push it a little bit further every time, but I'm also trying to give people tips and so they don't make the same mistakes I made. Because when I started keto, I didn't think that, oh man, I hit a plateau, maybe I should adjust my macros. I've been using the same macros for months now, maybe I need to titrate them down.
There you go. So one of the things that I quote all the time that is directly from you, I just want a little bit of backstory on. And I actually just said this to my wife. And, you know, being a parent, it's a running joke in my house. But the quote that comes from you that I love so much, you did this to you.
I cannot take full credit for that quote.
You're getting it anyways.
I was doing a custom Go Ruck event in Port Clinton, Ohio, which is out there by Cedar Point, if anyone knows the area.
I do, actually.
We were doing it for the Battle of Lake Erie, and my friend Dean, who is a GRT Go Ruck tough guy from up in Detroit, he kept saying like these off the wall quotes. And so he would say like, "You did this to you," and then he would be like, "Dolly Parton, 1812," just he kept saying it over and over again. And here's the thing with stuff that Dean says is it becomes almost hypnotic, and then you can't stop saying it. So the entire event, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, "You did this to you. You did this to you," and then it just stuck in my head until finally I came up with the idea to start this Keto Rucker blog, start my business. And I was like, what's my tagline? And what better to say than "you did this to you?" Because I think there's a lot of power in that phrase.
Oh, I love it.
If you fail, well, you did this to you. When you make a decision, that's like pulling back the string on a bow with an arrow on it. As soon as you let that arrow fly, there's no taking that decision back. Wherever that arrow lands, you're responsible for it. So every decision you make when you're in life, when you're deciding what macros am I going to set myself at? Am I going to cheat today or am I not going to cheat today? Take responsibility for what you do to yourself, because you are ultimately responsible for forming yourself. So if you fail, you're at fault for failing. If you succeed, you are responsible for that success, and you should revel in it and be proud.
I think that's a really good way of looking at it. It's about personal responsibility. It's about stopping giving excuses for every little thing. I don't remember anything specific that I did in my, pre-keto life that was an excuse that, I wasn't, why I wasn't healthy or why I wasn't fit or why I wasn't paying attention to any of that, other than I'm just busy because I'm really good at being busy. But I can be healthy and busy at the same time. So that's not an excuse. And I absolutely did this to me. 280 pounds, completely unhealthy, pre-diabetic, all of that type of stuff. Yeah, I did that to me because I was snarfing down those little Debbies. I was eating out of vending machines every day, all of that. So it was not a good thing at all. And so I did that to me. So we've been gracious with your time. We're winding down at this point. Let's talk about what a day of eating looks for you, and also kind of tie into that, one or two top tips or things that you have found that have made living a ketogenic lifestyle that much easier.
Well, I would say a typical day for me, I used to be the OMOD guy. I would do the bulletproof coffee in the morning and then one giant meal at night, usually of ribeyes and butter. When I discovered my smoker, it would just be pork belly galore. Nowadays, I'm trying to kind of even it out because I'm not, how do I say this? I'm not impressing anybody by just eating one meal a day. So why should I make myself suffer all the time? I know that eating one meal a day is a tool in my toolbox, so I don't have to use my hammer all the time. There are times where it's okay to use a screwdriver. So now it's, 4 or 5 eggs in the morning, and then midway through the day, it'll be biltong and some water with some salt in it. Or if it's one of those days, because I'm on the road and there are grocery stores within my territory, it's real easy to grab a Rebel ice cream. But I try not to make it a habit of that because the keto treats will get you too. And then usually for dinner, yeah, they are. Dinner is then pretty modest. Is just 3 or 4 good size boneless, skinless chicken breasts, and then with butter on top and some leafy green vegetables. Because my big thing now is I'm trying to I'm trying to dial in my diet to optimize my digestive health. And so eating one meal a day, I might be killing off potentially beneficial bacteria. So I'm trying to feed the bacteria throughout the day, and not just, getting that one big bolus at night so I can sleep. And I got to tell you, like today, I'm not going to go into details, but I had a bowel movement that was earth shattering. It was, they say there are people say that sex is the most overrated thing and a good poop is the most underrated thing. And I have to agree with that.
There's just something gratifying about it sometimes.
Yeah.
Do your pants fit better? I'm feeling great, man.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and you and I have actually talked. We've been friends now for a while since I arranged for you to have some keto bricks for one of your
the Ruck,
go Rucks back in the day. So we've gone back and forth, and you actually suggested some digestive enzymes. I've not been consistent with taking them, which is probably why they're not being as effective. But whenever I was, I think I was feeling a little bit of benefit from them. I was also during my carnivore month, so it's hard for me to tell the difference between one factor and another because I made that significant change from one style of eating to another by being completely veg free. So but there's all sorts of different things, and we could make an entire episode out of different hacks or different things that you would suggest for different people in different situations. You have a wealth of knowledge in a lot of ways.
I wanted to go back to the digestive thing because I want to explain why I'm doing that before we wrap up. Is I learned this. Your digestive system is actually linked with your core, your abdominal musculature. And so if your digestive tract isn't functioning properly, it's a good bet that your core won't function properly as well. And so if your core can't stabilize, your arms and legs have to do the work of the core. And if they're doing a job they're not meant to do, that prones you to injury. And so what I'm kind of doing is building my base for the Star Course and hopefully one day taking on the selection challenge and having a better chance of not doing injury to myself.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to be said for getting the brain gut thing going at full tilt because there's a lot of connections there that we don't even fully understand on a scientific level, but there's a whole brain's worth of stuff that's happening down in our digestive systems, and everything that I'm hearing about it is that it's really vital to have that particular part of our body working as well as we possibly can. And so how to feed that is still yet to be completely defined, at least in a really great way. So hopefully we will get more information about that, and hopefully your experimentation will help with giving some additional information for that as well. So let's go ahead and start wrapping up. Corey, how can people connect with you online?
On Instagram, I am Keto Rucker. You can also find me on Facebook. I have a Keto Rucker page set up. And then my website is ketorucker.com. So I post, I'm going to be posting gear reviews. When moments of muse hit me, I post my thoughts on different subjects. And then I do after action reports on all the events I do.
Yep. So that some really great resources there, and keep an eye on it. Corey's working right now to build up a portfolio and wants to offer some services down the line once he's got the groundwork laid, and he has some wisdom and some knowledge to be able to share. So be on the lookout for that.
Let's trying to get my web store up and running too. I have my own patch with Keto Rucker logo and the motto "You did this to you." So eventually, when I tackle the whole web store problem, those will be available for sale.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, they I may have to actually get that so I can put it on my backpack. I recently got a new a computer bag, but I intentionally made sure it was one that would qualify as a ruck because
Nice.
One of these days, if I have the time, I'll get in on one of these Central Texas events, and because there is a group here in Austin that meets.
Let's do it.
We've got to just
You got to manage your activities, my man.
I do have
Everybody's
to
got the same
activities.
24 hours.
Yes.
It's all about managing activities.
I spend a lot of time managing my activities in front of my computers. But yeah, that absolutely is something I'm interested in doing, and all of that. And Corey, if you do get down to KetoCon, we this next year, I know that's still up in the air. We will definitely do what we can to hang out and maybe ruck around a little bit. So let's go around with the rest of us with the socials. It kind of goes without saying, so I'll mention it now so that it's true for all of us. We are in the group. All four of us are in the group, and you can usually just tag us, and we're not far away. Jim, unfortunately, has limited access during the day these days, so he might take a little bit longer to respond, but we will respond if you tag us. So in the Facebook group, feel free to do so.
A quick disclaimer on that too is don't take anything seriously from me. Like if you say that, hey, you guys can't rehab an old man like me, I'll probably comment on it and say, yeah, you're right. Don't take that seriously. I don't know you. I'm just dicking with you.
I'm just going to probably put an explicit tag on this one. And yeah, no, that there's a lot of humor that goes on in our Instagram group chats and all of that. And so Corey's a big part of that. So he's got some great wisdom, but he also knows how to have a great time. Jim, how about you? How can people connect with you?
Aside from the Facebook group, I'm on Instagram, Jim Inman JR.
And Alberto?
On Instagram at the Keto Cholo.
Yep. And I am at Duckman1221 and Duckman Keto. And you can connect with our podcast on Instagram by following at Keto Man's Club Podcast. And our website is theketomansclub.com. That links you to the Facebook group, the Facebook page. It will link to the beginners group. It links to all of the people that we have ties to, like KetoCon, and we have an Alterna Suites link and all sorts of links there to our socials. And so if you're wanting to connect with us in any way, it's all there. And so that link tree is a really great resource for you. The podcast is there. And so theketomansclub.com is really the only link that you really need to remember. And luckily, it's pretty easy to do so. At this point, any other final parting shots? Any final questions, guys?
Good.
Happy New Year.
Yes.
There it
Happy
is.
New Year. Yeah,
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Get out there and rock.
This will be airing the first week, and so start out strong and get a plan in place if you need one, or start yesterday, like what we suggest in last week's episode. So
start yesterday.
Yeah, just start yesterday. Well, thanks again, Corey, for joining us. That's it for this week. Until next week, make sure to eat meat, lift heavy, sleep, and repeat. Thank you for joining us for the Keto Man's Club podcast. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Would you help us spread the word about the Keto Man's Club by sharing with your friends and family? We're available on all podcast platforms, so just search for Keto Man's Club and you'll find us. If you would like to connect with us, you can do so a number of ways. Our web address leads to our Facebook group, theketomansclub.com. That's TheKetoMansClub.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at Keto Man's Club Podcast. Lastly, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out via email to KetoMansClubPodcast@gmail.com. Thank you again for joining us today, and we look forward to hanging out with you again next week.